second tallest building on Earth is sinking into the ground, not a few millimeters. Not the kind of gradual settling engineers budget for and file away. The ground around it cracked open during construction, wide enough to fit 3 fingers inside, and the city underneath it has dropped 8 feet since 1921. Here's the part nobody is saying out loud. Shanghai keeps building up, the ground keeps going down, and the math on those 2 facts has never once been made public. This is document 1. The Shanghai file is open. What you are about to hear is not a prediction. It is not a warning. It is a record built from government studies, peer-reviewed science, engineering reports, and one detail about a building that the people who built it have never fully explained. Shanghai is built on the sediment of the Yangtze River, 300 feet of clay and sand, deposited over millions of years at the mouth of one of the longest rivers on Earth. There is no bedrock. There never was. The city has known this since 1921. That is when the first official subsidence record was written, not by a journalist, not by a critic, by the Shanghai government itself. By the 1960s, the ground was dropping 4 inches every year. Engineers calculated that if the rate held, Shanghai would be below sea level by 1999. The government intervened, restricted groundwater extraction, pumped water back underground, and the rate slowed. But it never stopped. A 2024 study published in Science, funded by the Chinese government, authored by 63 Chinese scientists, found that nearly half of China's urban land is still sinking. Shanghai is listed among the most exposed coastal cities in the country. That study was not a surprise to anyone in the Chinese government. It confirmed what they already knew, what they had known officially in writing since at least 2008. On November 29, 2008, China held a groundbreaking ceremony. The site, a former golf driving range in the Lujiazui financial district of Pudong. The project, the world's second tallest building. The name, Shanghai Tower. 3 weeks before that ceremony, Chinese state television broadcast an official report. The report stated that more than 50 Chinese cities had widespread land subsidence. It named the Yangtze River Delta, the exact region where Shanghai sits, as one of 3 zones with serious land subsidence problems. The report was not leaked. It was not suppressed. It was broadcast on CCTV, official, public, on the record. And 3 weeks later, they broke ground on an 850,000-ton skyscraper directly on top of it. I want you to sit with that for a moment. This is not a story about a cover-up. Cover-ups require secrecy. What happened in Shanghai in 2008 is stranger than a cover-up. The government published the problem and approved the building in the same month. The engineers who designed Shanghai Tower knew what they were working with. Gensler, the architects. Thornton Tomasetti, the structural engineers. They knew the soil was clay. They knew the city was sinking. They knew there was no bedrock to anchor to, not at any reachable depth. So they built the most ambitious foundation in Chinese construction history. 90 concrete piles, each 1 meter wide, driven 52 to 56 meters into the ground, as deep as the stable soil layer would allow. Not bedrock, stable soil, on a river delta. Then they poured a foundation slab 6 meters thick in a single 63-hour continuous pour. 61,000 cubic meters of concrete. The tower went up 128 floors, 2,073 feet. A twisting glass form designed to reduce wind load by 24%. 90 piles holding 850,000 tons. Every engineering decision was made with full knowledge of what was underneath. The foundation was not a compromise. It was the best solution available on ground that could not give them what they actually needed. And then the ground cracked anyway. In early 2012, while Shanghai Tower was still rising, photographs appeared on Chinese social media. Cracks in the streets around the Lujiazui district. Not hairline fractures, wide enough, as local reports described, to fit 3 fingers inside. The cracks ran through the zone where 3 super-tall skyscrapers were pressing their combined weight into the same patch of clay. The developer issued a statement. The cracks were caused by normal construction settlement. The project was not in danger. Notice what that statement does not say. It does not say the ground stopped moving. It does not say the settlement was within predicted limits. It says the project was not in danger. That is a different sentence. At the same time, a geotechnical assessment noted that the 3 towers in Lujiazui were subsiding as a cluster, not just at individual foundation points, but as a shared load pressing down on shared soil. The combined weight was compressing the ground underneath all of them together. One engineer, quoted in the Global Times, said the city had become too heavy not to continue sinking. That quote is in the public record. It has never been formally contested. And here's the detail I think matters most. After Shanghai Tower opened, the Chinese government did not publish ongoing subsidence monitoring data for the building or for the Lujiazui cluster. In San Francisco, when the Millennium Tower began sinking, residents could track the lean to the inch. Lawyers subpoenaed the monitoring records. The press reported the numbers. In Shanghai, the numbers were not made public. We know the ground cracked during construction. We know the engineers said it was normal. We do not know what the instruments have measured since the building opened because no one is required to say. Here is the part of the Shanghai Tower story that has nothing to do with the ground. The building cost $4 billion to build. It opened in 2016 as a symbol of China's economic power. The crown jewel of the Lujiazui skyline, designed to attract the world's top multinational firms. By 2019, 55 floors were empty. The tower ran operating losses of more than $1.5 billion. The fire department withheld full certification for years over concerns about the building's height. The twisting outer facade, engineered to cut wind load, made the floor plates inefficient. Tenants were paying rent on space they could not use. The International Monetary Fund noted publicly that no private company in the world could have built a project this expensive and leased so little of it. The tower was a government vanity project. That was the IMF's characterization. On the record, I want to be precise about what this means for the Subsidence story. An 850,000-ton building is pressing down on soft clay in a city that has been sinking for a century. The engineers built the best foundation they could. The ground cracked during construction. The monitoring data after opening has not been made public, and the building is largely empty. The weight of Shanghai Tower is sitting on that ground whether anyone is in it or not. The 980 piles are holding 850,000 tons of glass and steel and concrete, regardless of whether the tenants showed up. The city approved this. The engineers built it. The government announced the problem and held the groundbreaking in the same month. And today the building stands 2,073 feet tall over a city whose ground is still moving, with no public record of what is happening underneath it. I personally think the Shanghai story is not what anyone has called it yet. The official version is an engineering achievement, the second tallest building on Earth, built on the most challenging ground on the planet, standing without incident, a symbol of what modern engineering can do. The version I think is more honest is this. In 2008, the Chinese government published a report confirming that the Yangtze River Delta had serious land subsidence problems. 3 weeks later, they broke ground on the heaviest building they had ever built, directly in the middle of it. The engineers did everything right with what the ground would give them, and then they did not tell anyone what happened next. San Francisco built one building on soft soil without proper oversight. When it failed, the city changed its laws. Every tower built there since 2009 must anchor to bedrock. Independent review is now mandatory. Shanghai cannot make that rule. There is no bedrock to anchor to. The Yangtze Delta goes 300 feet down before it hits anything close to solid. The constraint that San Francisco fixed with regulation, Shanghai cannot fix at all. What that means is simple. Every additional tower built in Lujiazui adds weight to ground that is already moving. The 2024 science study, the one funded by the Chinese government, written by Chinese scientists, confirmed the ground is still sinking, and Shanghai has 12 more skyscrapers over 200 meters currently under construction. There is one detail I want to leave near the close because I think it captures the entire posture of this story. When the cracks appeared in the streets around Shanghai Tower in 2012, the developer said settlement was normal. When the building sat half-empty for years, officials called it a transition period. When scientists confirmed the ground was still moving in 2024, the government called it manageable. Manageable. Normal. Transition. Every reassurance delivered in the same breath as the problem. I personally think that is exactly how a slow disaster sounds before anyone agrees it is one. This is document 1. This is what is in the file. The next file I'm going to open is London. In 2017, a fire broke out in a residential tower called Grenfell. 72 people died. The government promised that every building in England with dangerous cladding would be identified and fixed. It is now 2025. A government audit found that 60% of buildings with dangerous cladding have not even been identified yet. Nearly 500 buildings have no remediation plan at all. The question that runs through the London file is the same one that runs through this one. They knew. The record shows they knew. The only question is who was standing there when the bill came due. If you want to read that file when it opens, subscribe to Global Construction Files. Every collapse has a cost. Every cost has a record. We open the file.